This program and its contents are designed for information and educational purposes only. This program does not render medical advice or professional services and is not intended to be a substitute for professional care. The information provided here should not be used for the purposes of diagnosing or treating a medical or psychiatric condition. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, consult your healthcare provider.
Hi, welcome to Positive Momentum TV. I'm Diane Silva, and today I have Nina Wilson, owner of One Life Holistic Health. Nina, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am the owner of One Life Holistic Health. It's kind of a business I created due to some health challenges that I had previously. I'm also a student getting my master's in clinical counseling.
Awesome. This is going to be a good show then, because we're going to have lots to talk about. So can you tell me how you said One Life Holistic Health, and we were talking earlier, and you mentioned that came about because of your own challenges and how
Sure.
you turned that into a business or something that would be able to help others as well as yourself?
Yeah. In 2007, I graduated with my bachelor's in psychology, and really the only place you can go from there is social work jobs. And so I was working in a social work job as an advocate for victims of domestic violence, loving my job. However, I started to feel less satisfaction, and I was starting to get really tired during that work. And I thought it was just due to being overstressed, because it's a very stressful job. It's a very demanding job. And I had went to several doctors because I just wasn't feeling right. I just knew something wasn't right. And I had gained a lot of weight in a very short amount of time. And even though I wasn't the healthiest eater at the time and probably wasn't exercising enough, it still was way more than probably what should have been. And so I went through several doctors, and they couldn't really find anything wrong with me. That same year, my mom called me and told me that she was recently diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease.
Okay, we can touch more on that if you want.
Right.
Or we can
So what I ended up doing was trying to figure out how to manage my symptoms and things like that without having this diagnosis, but I was pretty sure, especially since it's a genetic disease, that that's what I had.
So real quick, and I apologize because I'm not sure what this disease is. If you could do it in a nutshell, real high level, what is this disease? What are the symptoms to it?
Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease where your body thinks your thyroid is a foreign object. Okay. So it attacks your thyroid, and if it goes undiagnosed, eventually it will kill off your thyroid. Okay. And it caused hypothyroid in me.
Which would explain some of the weight. Am I getting ahead of myself?
No, but you're right. It did. It did absolutely explain the weight and the tired and things like that. Okay. It's kind of a long road because there are other issues that came about because it wasn't being treated, because it took me a really long time to find a doctor that was willing to run the correct tests to find out and give me that diagnosis. But in the meantime, I was trying to figure out how to manage my symptoms myself. So I was doing as much research as I possibly could, and I started doing yoga and meditation, and I actually started running because meditation is really hard for me, and running or walking and things like that, you meditate during that. I started doing energy work, and I started eating Ayurvedically, which I learned from yoga because...
Okay, again, and I apologize because I don't know this stuff, so
no,
if I don't
fine.
know, I'm sure there's other people who don't, so can we dumb down Ayurvedic eating or Ayurvedic,
Yeah, absolutely. Ayurveda is the sister science to yoga, so it's kind of the nutrition part of it. Okay. If you go over to India, they don't really have doctors, they more have Ayurvedic practitioners, and they look at things like your tongue and your eyes, and that's kind of how they diagnose what's going on with you. Okay. And then they prescribe you a diet and herbs and not so much synthetic medication.
So basically you go into a physician or a healer, I guess that would be a way of putting it.
Maybe, I'm not really sure what they,
I'm
not sure what they call it.
But different than Western medicine, where most Western medicine, at least my experience has been, oh, here, take this pill.
Right.
take this pill, take this pill. They're going more on the holistic side and saying, okay, here's a diet, change your food intake, change your, and add this supplement or whatever, whether it be an herb or whatever. And they're saying that's going to make the difference versus, oh, here's this pill. And I can see where they would both come together.
Right.
But anyway,
Right.
sorry I got off track.
No, you're fine. They also will prescribe a certain yoga practice and a certain meditation type.
Oh.
There are 3 different doshas in Ayurveda, so you're one of the 3. To have perfect health in Ayurveda, you'll have all 3 of your doshas, because we all contain them. You'll have all 3 of your doshas completely balanced out.
Okay, again, what is a dosha?
So a dosha would just be kind of like 3 different, those different personality tests that they have?
Right. Okay.
So it's kind of like that, but in Ayurveda.
Okay.
And obviously it deals with more things than just your personality. It deals with your hair type and your skin type and those types of things.
Okay.
And it just really, when you figure out what your main dosha is, it just means that is the one that's usually unbalanced. So you just eat and live to try to keep them completely balanced out.
So basically it's like a lot of what many people are striving for today is that balance, whether it's just a type of balance, but it's still keeping yourself in balance, finding that holistic way of treating the body, mind, spirit all together.
But that really helped me manage a lot of my symptoms, because you have some really weird symptoms, like your feet are really dry, your hair falls out, and it's a lot of weird things you have going on that you don't think to put together. Like, you don't think to connect them and say, oh, I have this because these lists of things, it's just random, kind of. And it helped really to decrease the inflammation in my body, because anyone with an autoimmune disease is going to have a lot of inflammation in your body. It obviously didn't help necessarily regulate my thyroid. I mean, you kind of need medication for that. But until I could get to the point where that was diagnosed, I needed something to help control my symptoms. And to this day, I still do all of that, because that still helps me control all of that.
Well, and I had heard recently, I've been trying to, we've had this health challenge going on. I'm sure I know we've talked about it, where, I'm trying to help myself, and there's another crew member here, Eric, who's also working on reducing our size. And in talking to other people about these health challenges, one of them says, have you heard this diet? Have you heard that diet? Have you heard this? And you're talking about inflammation, and one of the things I've heard is if you go on a clean diet, where we're getting rid of some of the wheat and something like that, we're going to reduce the inflammation in our bodies, which is also going to help other symptoms. So trying to find a different way of eating, because the diet industry is huge. There's billions and billions and billions, and part of it is because of the fact that it's like, okay, I want to eat clean. Yeah, I'm so conditioned to grabbing that muffin or going down to the store and finding whatever. It's really hard to change this style. And what is eating healthy? I don't know. Even the chicken we get, it's been fed this stuff, and how do we know what's clean and what's not clean? We think we're eating clean, but was the product raised properly, or or even the corn and wheat? How many chemicals are in there? I have a friend who's got fibromyalgia, and one of the things they found is that the fibromyalgia was not really caused, but helped exacerbate the situation, made it worse, because of the fact she lived out on a farm, and they were fertilizing all this, the insecticides, the pesticides, this side, that side, and she was breathing it in, which only made the fibromyalgia worse. Can you imagine what it's doing to the livestock that's there?
Right, absolutely.
So, to your point, you're talking this Ayurvedic and this One Life Holistic Health I'm assuming is all kind of tying into this
yes,
new whole life. And if you would kind of, I'm stumbling, so.
No, you're fine. And you kind of bring up a good point, and I talk about that a lot on my health blog, is that it's so confusing about eating clean and things like that, because there are so many chemicals put in our processed food. So eating clean really is trying to eat organically, and it really is trying to eat fresh food as opposed to processed food. But then what that does is that takes up a lot more of our time, and in our Western civilization, we have to be 100% productive all the time.
Yes.
So how do you find the time to cook? Because that's really what eating clean is about, is cooking your food and not buying pre-made processed stuff. So in my blog, I go into how to do that. But then on the flip side of things, you have these issues with organic produce having E. coli and things like that. So there's kind of guidelines of how to buy organic. And then when you see cage-free, free-range, when you're talking about the chickens and eggs and things like that, that's very confusing. What's best? Is organic? Is cage-free? Is free-range? What's the best?
Right.
You know, and so it's hard to decipher all of that.
Right, and there's and it's mixed signals too, because you can have a free range or cage-free, and they still only get, you know, so much square footage. I remember watching a show, I'm trying to remember which one it was, maybe Bones or some, you know, one of these shows, and they're showing where they cut off the baby chick's beak so it doesn't attack the other chicks because it doesn't have enough space. And, you know, it's kind of
devastating.
I know it is, and I'm kind of going, okay, and I'm not a vegan or, you know, vegetarian by any stretch. At the same time, you know, it really lends cause to go in that direction, because what kind of inhumane things are we doing to our food?
Right.
You know, it's bad enough to, sorry, never mind, we're not going to go there. Sorry, I apologize. Stop.
That could be a very long tangent, and I agree with you. I would stick with you on that, but I agree that could take a very whole nother segment.
And it would turn really dark real quick, so let's not go there.
I will say, though, my suggestion for that is to eat locally.
Okay.
Because then you kind of know, and a lot of the local farms around here, which is just fabulous, you can go and see how the animals are living. There's a bison ranch in Broken Bow, Nebraska, where I get my bison, because bison is a little bit healthier than cattle, and my mom, working for a cattle ranch, is probably not very happy that I say that, but it is. And so, but you can go and you can see how they use the different parts of the animal, and it's how it's organic and how it's free range. There's a goat farm, I think, in Iowa that you can go and you can see. And so, but then knowing that when I go to one of the local grocery stores here that has those local things, I know what I'm getting. Plus, it's also kind of fun to just take an afternoon and do those types of things.
Yeah, and I also saw in the news recently that there is a business trying to open up in town where you get to choose the animal you're going to have for dinner, you know, for the next couple, you know, so.
Oh, I don't know if I could do that.
We'll see, and the only reason I'm going there is, to your point, was to go out to the farm and see how it's raised and see how it's basically the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
But for me, again, we're not going to go here because it just gets a little too dark. But
yeah, that would be difficult for me. And I mean, I grew up on a farm, and we ate the calves that I've bottle fed, so I get it. But yeah, that's difficult.
Well, and I came from a larger, not large city, but, you know, I came from like Omaha, but, you know, I came from Wisconsin, and, you know, we have farms around us just like we do here. But I never really touched on the farm, and, you know, okay, yeah, I went to visit a friend on a farm, but, you know, I fed the pigs, but it never connected.
Right.
You know, so those of us who are city and don't really connect with the farm, you know, oh, this is the burger. You know, and we don't really, or this is, you know, a chicken patty, you know, you connect, but there's no emotional connection until you go and, yeah.
Right, absolutely.
So anyway, I don't know how we went from eating clean to
farms,
all right.
But that's okay. I'm horrible about tangents, absolutely horrible. My public speaking is ridiculous.
So this isn't public speaking, this is personal speaking with the public watching.
Right. Anyways, so then I did find a doctor here in Omaha, which is one of the main reasons I moved to Omaha, to run the test and diagnose me with Hashimoto's and hypothyroid. So he has a fairly holistic approach.
Okay.
Obviously, I have to be on thyroid medication, and so but it is a more natural thyroid medication as opposed to a synthetic thyroid medication. But I was still having problems losing that stinking weight that I gained.
Oh,
yes.
I think it's a point of contention for most of us.
And I was so tired. Like, I had a full-time job when I moved here. I had to quit. And then I worked part-time. I was only awake for 4 hours a day. I only worked 3 hours a day because I was so tired.
Oh, wow.
And they just didn't, you know, he didn't really want to entertain any of the things that I had researched and thought was maybe wrong with me. So I ended up in this other doctor's office, not for this issue, but for something else, entirely something else. And, you know, you fill out those like health sheets or whatever. And he asked me, he goes, do you think that you probably have an adrenal gland issue? I said, I think so, but my doctor won't really entertain that. And he goes, well, I'm going to entertain that. So,
awesome, somebody who listens.
right. So he ran the tests on that, and my adrenal gland wasn't working. Your adrenal gland is usually kind of functioning with your thyroid. So if your thyroid's not really working, chances are your adrenal gland's not working. And so then you're fatigued, and it's like deathly impossible to lose weight.
Yeah, I can see where that would be really difficult. And just for my own, when you said adrenal gland, I'm thinking of the adrenaline rush, you know, whatever.
Right.
But I didn't look at the connection between the adrenal and the thyroid. So this is quite
Well, and all your
informative.
hormones, too.
Oh my gosh, yes, because
So-
adrenaline is a hormone. Duh.
Yeah, when I went to the first doctor, I was severely low on 2 hormones that help your brain function.
Oh.
So before I went, I can remember being at work and I was walking around the office. And my coworkers were like, Nina, what are you doing? I'm like, I have no clue. I got out of my chair and I started walking to get something. I don't remember what it was. I mean, I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was literally going insane. So it was kind of nice because then, you know, I got on those hormones. I've recently weaned myself off of them and can think properly. But then obviously Ayurvedically and eating clean and diet and exercise can help regulate my adrenal gland and my thyroid. However, that is going to take time, and that's one of the reasons why I think us Americans don't necessarily do a lot of that, because it takes a lot of time to heal your body through food, which can be done. But instead of putting myself on medication, my doctor that I saw put me on Isagenix, and so I've been using that to kind of help clean out my system, because it's a cleansing system, and then that's been really helpful as well.
Okay, so Isagenix, we talked a little bit about that, but you know, it's one of those situations where it sounds, 2 things. You know, you're talking about healing through food, which takes time. That's the one thing we don't want to do. We want it now,
Right.
you know, and that's one reason why the medical community and pharmaceuticals are going, here, take this, take this, take this, take this. You know, basically, you know, most things will happen eventually anyway if we allow them to.
Right.
But first of all, we want it right now. And second of all, we don't want to have to do the work.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it's an effort or it's uncomfortable. I mean,
Right.
this didn't happen overnight.
Right.
It's not going to go away overnight, you know, but I want it to. I want to be able to look in the mirror tomorrow morning and go, oh my God, I've lost weight.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah, you know,
We'll
okay,
be
we're just going to
millionaires.
skin your mirror.
Right? One of those trick mirrors.
That would be great. So if you wouldn't mind, talk about this Isagenix a little bit.
Well, I didn't have time to wait because, again, I was only awake for 4 hours a day. So I was so tired. So I didn't have time to wait. So he put me on Isagenix. And essentially, I mean, there's shakes and there's cleanse days where you cleanse your body and things like that. And I don't do anything without totally researching it. But there was a lot of things about this product and about this company that I really liked. And but one of the main components is the cleanse drink that you take. And I cannot do cleanse days because now I just love food and I have to eat. So I take my cleanse at night, but it kind of cleanses at a cellular level. So it really takes away all of the inflammation and toxins that are in your body. There's another issue that I had when I had when I went in for the adrenal is I had a heavy metals toxicity. I mean, it was really high. So I had to do chelation therapy because it was so high, but the Isagenix really does help keep those toxins out of your body that you get from the air, from the food that we eat because of the things that are put in it and stuff like that.
So besides Isagenix, you know, I mean, that seems like it's a brand of some sort,
Sure.
or I don't know if it is a brand or if it's just a program or whatever. But if someone wanted to go on this path where they wanted to clean and cleanse, Are there other ways to do this besides this isogenics?
Oh, yeah,
Or,
yeah.
you know, I mean, I know there's tons
Yeah.
of books, but let's say for me, I want to start, but, you know, okay, I am so hooked on Western foods, you know, okay, it's easier to go to the store. Oh, I want to go to Lansky's and get a
Right.
sub, or I want to go
Right.
to Burger King because I'm in a hurry. So if you could give us some pointers on how to at least start something like this where we can
Sure.
ease it in to transition from this unhealthy, you know, fast food. I've got a daughter we just found out has celiac disease. So,
Oh,
you know,
goodness, yeah.
you know, my granddaughter she's 11 and she can't have, she has issues with gluten. I'm having a brain cramp. So, you know, trying to transition. And it's hard because stuff is hidden. So if you could kind of give me some pointers or give us some pointers on how to transition our
Sure,
diets
sure.
to.
One thing is that there's tons of herbal cleanses and juice diets and all these different, I mean, it's just becoming a big thing these days because we're aware now. I would say to begin, start adding things like cinnamon,
Okay.
turmeric, capsaicin, those types of herbs, because those naturally cleanse your body. So start adding those types of spices, and then there's other herbs and things that you can add into your diet. So start there. Then start trying to clean up your diet. Make sure you're, you know, going a little bit more towards the organic. You might have to do some research. I mean,
Well, yeah.
let's be proactive about our health and not reactive. So you might have to do a little research. One thing that I've really found in what I do with my clients is that you have to find what works for you. So I have a weight loss program and I can tell you how to work this weight loss program, but if that's not going to work for you, I'm not going to tell you to do that. I'm going to work with you to find what works for you.
Right.
You know, that was my main business goal when I opened that, was figuring out you know, through life coaching and through the Ayurveda and the yoga, but whatever else it needs to be, if those things aren't going to work for you, I'll still work with you because we're just going to find what's working. And so kind of doing that and really just paying attention to the foods that you eat, slowly taking out what I call negative foods,
Which would be?
processed things.
That's everything.
That jelly donut that's sitting on the table out there.
Yeah.
You know, start using more of honey or maple syrup or coconut sugar instead of refined white sugar. And I mean, just slowly taking those things out of your diet. Because if you go in with an all or nothing mindset, it's not going to be a lifestyle change, and it has to be. It's going to have to be. So
if you could point out what would be the one thing, and I know there's not any one thing that would make a major difference to how we feel as well as how we can change what we're doing, okay?
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, you talked about the sugar thing. You know, I know for my granddaughter we have to change the flour we use, you know, stuff like that. But if there was one thing to start, you know, besides drinking more water,
Yes.
you know, that's something we
Yes.
all need to do, and getting plenty of sleep.
Right.
You know, and I found, just real quick, is I found that, you know, those of us with anxiety, and yes, I'm identifying with anxiety again, but those of us with anxiety need at least 8 hours of sleep because our mind processes the anxiety part and the fear part between hours 5 and 7 while we're sleeping. So if we don't get that amount of sleep, our mind can't process and work through those.
Right.
So for just as a pointer before we get on to what your information is plenty of water and get plenty of sleep. And then we'll move over to Nina and show. Sorry, didn't mean to capture that.
But I love what you brought up about how you're feeling, because not only physically will obviously diet and nutrition affect you, but there has been several studies, and being in the counseling program, I mean, I've done all this research, several studies that connect the food that we eat to what we think and feel up here. So like processed foods are going to kind of act like, this is going to be a really big stretch, but I'm going to say like crack. So,
Okay.
you know, it's going to make you feel kind of high if you eat too much sugar, right? Sugar high.
Yeah.
So, and so if you eat too much processed food, there may be a connection or a link to, say, depression and anxiety disorders and things like that. So So yes, there is one thing that will change the way you physically feel, the way you mentally feel, and that's taking out processed foods.
And that's going to be so hard because it's every grocery store, unless you know, even when you're on, they talk about going on the outside aisles only. Don't go through, you know, any of the inside aisles, just go on the outside aisle. Even there's all this processed stuff. And, you know, where do you find natural milk or natural almond milk? That's processed even to some degree. So, and one of
and there's a fine line, and I mean, it's really figuring out what works for your life as well. But even the processed health foods are not good for you. You know, you can go to Whole Foods and there is like aisles and aisles and aisles of processed food.
Right.
Minimally processed, I think, but even then it's still.
Right. And I don't think there's any way to totally, at least in our lifestyle yet, totally avoid process to some degree.
Agreed.
Now there is one pointer I did find out, that when I change over, there's going to be some sort of discomfort from changing from this to this.
Yes.
Because my body is used to, hey, give me this, give me this, give me this.
Oh, and your cravings are going to be crazy.
Yeah. So that's where the anxiety comes in, is this, oh my God, how am I going to feel about this? You know, okay, stay in the moment. Just stay in the moment. I'm okay right now. You know, yeah, this sucks. And don't go give in to that craving.
Well, and that's where having, you know, a really good support system helps. And like if you have a family of 4 and one person's trying to make the switch, it's just not as easy as if you're trying to switch as a whole. You know, it's a lot easier if you have that support, or if you have a health coach, or friends or other family members that are doing that as well. So that's really important. But I'm not an advocate of going all or nothing, because it's never worked for me. I'm totally a baby step person. So again, it's really finding how to incorporate healthier things into your lifestyle, whether it be more exercise, less processed foods, things like that, but doing what works for you as well, because you want it to last, you know.
I understand. Well, Lena, we're out of time on this segment, but I would love to have you back, you know, whether it be, you know, next week or very soon, because I think we touched on a very, very pertinent issue.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching Positive Momentum. If you have any questions or issues, contact us at inquiry@positivemomentum.net. And thank you again for watching. Look forward to seeing you next week. I think this was a great subject.